Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, Jen.
What are you listening to this week? Welcome to Season 6 of What Are You Listening To? The weekly podcast created to foster community through music by sharing the stories behind the songs that soundtrack our lives. Some of the songs are old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by Jennifer Montgomery. Jennifer is a local community leader, activist, and current president of Lake Travis Voices for Progress. Jennifer has a passion for fostering connection and positive change, and she has led Voices for Progress for over 2 years, steering it from an education-focused organization to one centered on advocacy. Under her leadership, the Voices for Progress community has grown exponentially and placed a keen focus on championing public education, sustainable development, and inclusion. This week, Jennifer is going to share insights on building strong, resilient communities in uncertain times through action, collaboration, and of course, the power of music. As always, Jennifer and I are going to get to know each other a little better through 4 songs. 2 are her picks and 2 are mine. Which songs do you think we're going to discuss? Tune into our conversation to find out. And in case our song picks are new to you, we'll publish a playlist with the episode so you don't miss a beat. With that, let's get started. Jennifer, what are you listening to this week?
Well, the first song I'm listening to is You Get What You Give by the New Radicals.
Oh, I love this song. I was so happy. I know it's like an unpopular opinion. I'm going to have some like listeners that are like, really, New Radicals? But, I talk a lot about the show and how music kind of drops you into a time and place. And for me, it came out in 1998. This was their only album, which is surprising given like how popular this song was. It was everywhere. But they were a band that was formed in LA. I think the year before, I think in 97. I was living in LA at the time, young, right out of college, running around. And this song just reminds me of those good old carefree days of the early, 20s running around Los Angeles. And then now, like listening to it, it has a whole different meaning to me, right? Is that kind of your relationship with this song as well? Like knowing that we're of a similar age and time period, but that knowing that like you chose this song for this particular episode, I'm wondering if you experienced the same thing. It kind of was this party fun anthem in the late 90s, and now it really has kind of a different meaning. Do you find it that way?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the song reminds me, of course, at the time period it came out. And at the time, I was actually living in Dallas, but was in the process of moving to San Francisco. And I remember thinking about it a lot because it was like giving me that motivation to change my life and move somewhere different, do something different. So it did give me motivation at the time. But I think about it a lot these days because people constantly ask me, what am I supposed to do right now? I feel overwhelmed. I feel powerless. And my first question to people is, well, what are you doing to make a difference? And I usually catch people off guard when I say that. And they're like, well, what can I do? Nobody elected me. I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, well, you get the community, the government, whatever, that you are putting forward. And if you're not out there contributing, then you're not doing your part.
I love that. And I think it's so resonant. I think, I'm guilty of like resting on my laurels for a long time until I think, the 2016 election, I think was what really woke me up. And I was like, whoa, 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 this isn't going to function the way it always has without some participation. And so I love that your message and, Lake Travis Voices for Progress is all about getting involved. It's all about organizing community. It's all about putting, people with the similar initiatives and goals together to mobilize for that change, because it's true, like you can't sit back and complain about something that you didn't have any part in building or shaping. I've always felt that way, and so I love that you sort of empower anyone to go out. Maybe this is a good time to ask you that question, like what is a community organizer? Can anyone do it? Like, I know that you mentioned, like, people say to you, like, well, I wasn't elected. What can I do? Like, what can you do locally and in your own community to feel like you're not helpless or powerless in a situation that feels out of control?
Yeah, when you use that word empower, that really is what a community organizer is just empowering, enabling a group of people to go out there and take action for whatever their goal is. And I think that's an important thing for people to think about too. When you're overwhelmed, there's so many things you can be overwhelmed about, and you can't focus on everything, but pick a couple things that are really important to you and figure out how you can take action against those two things. So that's really what community organizers do. And anybody can be a community organizer. I mean, I happened to step into a community that already existed to an extent and then took it to a different level. But anybody who's willing to step up right now and say, I want to do something, people will follow you. They're just looking for someone to lead them and tell them what to do.
No, I hear that so loud and clear. And I think also too, people think like, oh, it's so big, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like I remember early days of the organization. I mean, it was literally like 10 people in a living room having conversations. Do you know what I mean? Like, and now
Mm-hmm.
it's grown into this giant community organization. So I think that's important to call out too. Like, look, you don't have to start with 100 members or,
No.
even 50 people following you. Like, get 5 people, find 3 of your friends and make a plan to vote. Or, like you said, decide what those causes are, the 2 or 3 that are most important or most urgent in your local community, and find 4 other people that feel the same way and see what you can do. Is that the right way to think about it, or am I backwards?
No, I think for some people, it's easier to find a community that already exists and then
Mm-hmm.
become a part of it. And that's perfectly fine too, because every community is looking to grow, looking to bring in new people that want to be activists. But if that's not your thing and you have a niche thing you want to focus on and you want to do it with your friends, get your friends together. Because that really is what community building is about, is those relationships. We spend most of our time having socials
Mm-hmm.
because that's where people get to know each other and they become friends. And then when your friend calls you and says, hey, you want to go do lit drops with me? You're like,
Yeah.
all right, sure, I'll go do that with you. You're my friend. And it's much easier to really take action when those are people that you have a relationship with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, too, when you don't feel so isolated, right? I think sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when I get in a real like gloom and doom headspace, I think I'm the only one that's feeling that way. And so it does feel, again, I'm using this word empowering, but it does feel empowering to know that there are like minded folks out there, too. It just sort of throws the curtains open, and lets the sun shine on like, oh, I'm not the only one that's feeling this way. Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that this song does a great job at like pulling all of that in. It was funny as I dug into it again. It's one of those songs that like, I'll hear on the radio or I'll hear in the grocery store and I'm always like, "Oh, good, I love this one." And then like the more you get into it or the more I was researching or kind of digging into this song in particular, I learned so much more about it. Like I had forgotten that the band sort of got back together at the Biden inauguration because that was sort of
Mm-hmm.
one of Joe Biden's rallying theme songs
Mm-hmm.
whenever Beau Biden was, battling cancer. And so I thought that that was like so sweet and so special that this was kind of their family rallying song as well. And it's just another reason to sort of like put this one on a playlist for motivating and establishing community. So that was a nice little anecdote that I was happy to be reminded of. And I also, too, of course, love the line that says, "Don't let go. You've got the music in you. One
Yeah.
dance left. This world is going to pull through." Like,
Yep.
that's a
Yep.
goodie.
It gives you hope,
It
right?
does. It does.
Yeah.
And again, I think it speaks to the power. I talk a lot about the power of music, the power for it to transport you to a different time and place or a specific point in your life or a memory or a person. And it also has the ability to create that community and to put people together, very different people. I mean, I've been to so many concerts where I don't know half the people, yet we're all there engaged in a unique experience with one another, singing a song, all together in the crowd or whatever the case may be. It just reminds me that music is a powerful tool, and if that's one more tool in the toolbox that we can use to create the change we want to see, let's use it. And I think this song is a great example of that.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, tell me about your second pick. This one's close to my heart. So, yeah, tell me what the title and artist is for your second song.
I selected Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles.
Oh, this one. It almost doesn't get any better than this song. We could do a whole episode about just this song or just this album. But I also, too, I have to call out that I love that both of your songs are so positive. They're forward facing, they're pick yourself up, do what you can. It's not the end. I'm assuming that was intentional, but is that constantly something you have to remind yourself of in these times when things feel pretty chaotic?
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny. You asked me where, how songs meanings have changed for me. Here Comes the Sun is a song that I really didn't think about or listen to until I had kids and we watched the Bee Movie.
Yeah.
and it's the theme song from the Bee Movie, which is adorable. But over the years, it's my favorite Beatles song because it's so uplifting. And I think no matter where you are, whether it's in your personal life or it's in what's happening in our world right now, you have to look for those moments where something positive happens. And it is one of the things I really love about local community building, because you can get really bogged down by how on earth can I make a change at a federal level, at a state level. Everything just seems like it's a mess. But at a local level, one person contributing and helping makes a difference. And you can see changes much faster. And those are the things you have to look at and say, okay, look, here comes the sun. It's happening maybe at a smaller level, but I made a difference.
Yeah. And I think that's so important anytime you're fighting for change or anytime you're trying to make big moves is you've got to see some sort of incremental thing changing before you see the big giant change most times, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that was a great answer. That was one of the questions I had for you, why do local elections matter? I think sometimes we get so caught up in everything happening at a federal level, but it's just not the case. I mean, I know that, you and I have come into contact for certainly national elections, but recently we've been talking about school board election here locally in our very small community, and it's an important thing that's going to affect lots of other things. And so I think that it's examples like that, like your school board, like your local city council, things like that matter in your local community. And I think that people often think, like you said, oh, I'm not an elected official, or, oh, I voted and I didn't win, or my side, won or lost. But really, these local elections or these local incremental changes do sort of snowball into national changes, right? Is that something that you've seen or that you believe in? I've got to believe it is, given that you're so involved locally.
I believe strongly in that. I mean, for many reasons. One is, again, you're building that community at a local level, and that really contributes to organizing when you're talking about at a state and national level too. Running a state and a national election is enormous, and they rely heavily on these local communities to participate in that. So that's part of it. The other part of it is you actually have legislation that happens that then is passed down to your local officials, and they're making those decisions. So you need to make sure that your local officials are the people that you want making some of those legislative decisions. And then lastly, it's a stepping stone. People run for
Yes.
local office because a lot of times they have an intent to run for a higher office. So you want to make sure you're getting the best people who are there for the right reasons at a local level, because you may see them running for state or even national office at some point.
Such a good point. Such a good point. And again, like this will be our plug for that too. All of you new voters out there, young people, we have a lot in the community that listen to the show. Like it's so important to vote in these local elections. You know, I sort of admitted earlier on to resting on my laurels a little bit and committed to never doing that again. Like anytime there is a vote in my community, national, local, Texas, you know, statewide, I'm there. And so this is sort of my plea to any new voters or voters that have sort of like taken a break. Like every election matters. Like if you are eligible to vote, please exercise that right. It really, really does matter. And I think it's like you said, especially locally, like some of these local elections that we've seen have been won by literal like 20 votes or, you know, I mean, like small numbers. So it's not like that's where you see like one person making a difference, literally.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our school board election last year was won by about 300 votes. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the number of votes that you get from people texting their friends and reminding them to vote. So it makes a difference.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll definitely, for anybody who's local here in the Austin, Lake Travis area, we'll at the end of the show I'll call out some dates and some resources for that. But just across the country, you know, wherever you are, participate in your local elections. They really do matter. They really, really do. And I think your points of like people that run for local office often have aspirations of running for higher offices is so valid. So hopefully we've inspired folks to get out there and vote in local elections as well as national and state elections. With that, we are going to transition into my songs, and my first pick was an interesting one. So this isn't a song that I listen to every day or have on, you know, playlist often, but it seemed really relevant for this one. It's a song that I like. It's a song that I admired that it got taken sort of to the next level, or it got a refresh, if you will. And that song is We Didn't Start the Fire, but it's the Fall Out Boy version, not the Billy Joel version. Just because I loved the way that they sort of updated all of the things. You know, the song originally came out in 1989 and was a Billy Joel song. And then into 2023, Fall Out Boy did a version and sort of updated all of the things. You know, for people that aren't familiar with the song, it's basically just a list of current events that are happening. And the reason that I chose this song, you know, I love that you sort of had this forward-facing look and sort of this positive angle. And for me, I think mine was all about perspective, right? I think sometimes when I'm feeling scared or powerless, I think that this is the worst time we've ever lived in. And songs like this sort of remind me, you know what? Like, it's always burning since the world's been turning. You know, it's a line in the song. Like, I think we didn't start the fire, but we can fix it. We can either fan the flames in the direction we want or pour some water on those that we don't. And I think that perspective is important right now. Like when we're feeling helpless, you've got to remember people have felt that way since the beginning of time. And it is action, and it is community building, and it is making those friendships and those asks and those plans to get involved that change the trajectory of things. And so that's why I liked this song, because it gave me, you know, this perspective from the late 80s all the way until now of this just litany of things that were problematic. Then some of them still exist and some of them don't, you know. I thought that was really interesting too. Him, you know, the Billy Joel version talks about Harry Truman, Doris Day, Roy Cohn, who is still affecting us today, you know. Bay of Pigs, JFK, and now again, not JFK, but we still have the Kennedys influencing things. You know, again, it also reminded me like everything old is new again. Like you can't forget about the past, but you also have to have some perspective that there is always room for change. And then you get to the updated version, you know, where they talk about the Oklahoma City bomb and Harry Potter and Tiger King and Fyre Fest, and you know, it reminds me that and if they update the song again in, you know, 2053, it's going to be a whole new list of things, you know, like that's not going to change. But as long as we speak up and talk about the change we want to see, I really believe we can make it happen. I have to believe that.
I agree. I went back and listened to this song. I hadn't listened to it in a while, and I did laugh when I heard Tiger King. But it's the chorus that gets me. We didn't light it, but we're trying to fight it.
Yep.
Because again, I hear people have a defeatist attitude, and it's like, well, I didn't create this problem. How am I supposed to fix it? And the truth is, there have always been problems. There will continue to always be problems. And your job as a responsible citizen is to play a role in improving things, because there will always be people who are trying to make it worse. And you need to be out there trying to make it better.
Yeah, and I think that having those conversations is such a big part of it. I think that's another reason I really respect and admire what you all are doing, because you're not shying away from any of it. You're talking to everyone, people that think like you do, people that think differently. And I think that that's so critical. We can't live in a silo. And I think like that's sort of the differentiator for me about community building. That doesn't mean living in an echo chamber and only listening to people that think exactly like you. I don't need to be 100% perfectly aligned on every single point with the people I associate myself with. Honestly, I don't want to, because then I'm missing half of what's going on. So I really love that you all at Lake Travis Voices for Progress specifically are focused on having the conversations. Like, yes, you have a point of view. Yes, you have a perspective, but nothing is off limits. Everybody is welcome. Everybody, you are able to talk to everybody. And I think that that's so critical. I feel like that's something too, as we've gotten so siloed in like my team and your team, that a lot of the time we're missing the Venn diagram part where we're crossing over. Right. And
Yeah.
I think that's maybe one of the saddest things that I've seen, happen over the last 10 years is just these silos of people. And so I love that this song again reminds me that these kinds of things have been going on forever. It's not the worst time in the world. And how do you even define that, right? Like there's really no way. And so I think that it just, again, it helps me remember that I need to talk to everybody, and community means all people, not just people that think exactly like me. And you have to have those conversations and engage critical thinking to decide which causes are important, which people are going to help you move the needle forward in the direction of change that you want to see. And so again, this song just helps me remember that.
Yeah. And it is why we decided to focus on issues and not parties,
Yeah.
because when you talk about being supportive of public education, that means, especially in Texas right now, being opposed to vouchers, being opposed to book bans. And there are people on both sides of the aisle that don't like both of those things. And so it opens up a bigger umbrella of people who are fighting for the same thing.
Yeah, it's true. And I think in this time too, when political parties are a little bit undefined, the Texas conservatism that I grew up with in the Republican Party is completely different than what it looks like now in so many ways. And so I think that's been interesting for me too, to sort of engage with folks that are feeling like these labels or these two-party labels that we're putting on things just don't cut it anymore. They're just not the right descriptors. So I
Yeah.
completely agree with you on that. Well, to wrap up our playlist today, I picked an oldie but a goodie, another one. I'm taking us back to the 80s here. But this is one that also I feel like is such a simple, almost silly song, but is very perspective bringing for me. And that song is Stand by REM. And this is a song, Michael Stipe is has been an activist for a long time. He's very vocal, the lead singer of REM. And, this song came out in 1988. And I think it's still like such a simple message. Like to me, it kind of means a few things. It means look up, right? Not at your screen, not behind you. That's the past. Look up. Look up and see what's around you. And then shift your perspective. If you think something is one way, face north. Does it still look the same? Like, be a critical thinker. Think about the place where you live, wonder why you haven't before. I love that line. Like, I do that often. Literally, will like stand in my driveway or my cul-de-sac and like, what can I do? What here is something like, where can I make change? And then always follow your true north, right? Whatever that means for you, follow your true north. We all have something that we believe in so strongly, or something that drives us, whether it's, leaving a better world for our children, or creating an environment that feels safe and comfortable for everybody and inclusive. Like whatever your true north is, follow that always. And I think that this song sort of speaks to that in a really cute, succinct, simple way that almost ends up sounding like a mantra, because it repeats. It's not
Mm-hmm.
lyrically all that deep, but it does end up being something that reminds me, like, yeah, you know what, there are simple, easy things that I can do, and it really is all about just like looking up and always following that true north. What do you think? Was this a song? I'm assuming this is a song you were familiar with, but what were your thoughts about this one featuring on our playlist this week?
Oh yeah, REM is definitely one of my favorite bands from the '90s. But I have to admit, I had not listened to the song in a long
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So I again gave it a listen, and because when I saw that this is what you'd chosen, I thought that's an interesting choice. And one of the phrases that caught my attention was, "If wishes were trees, the leaves would be falling. Listen to reason, season is calling." And I thought, oh, that's really relevant right now,
Yep.
because again, I think a lot of people are like, they're wishing for things to improve and be better. Well, I mean, wishes don't go very far. And so it really is the season to take action. And
Yep.
so, yes, I mean, it was a fun song to listen to, and got to have a quick conversation with my daughter, who said, my 15-year-old daughter said, REM, who is that? And I was like, oh my gosh, I've raised a child who doesn't know REM.
I know, isn't it such a proud parenting moment? Like, if we're walking through the grocery store, I have a 17-year-old, and if she's like, "Oh, mom, Zeppelin," I'm like, "Bravo! Like, I've done my job." So yes, very true. And again, this is sort of a silly, and I like thinking about activists or musicians that have a voice and a point of view. REM immediately came to mind, and they have so many songs that probably could have fit on this playlist. But again, I think stand, just because it is so simple and it is so much to me about looking around and what can you affect today, where can you make change right in your own backyard. And that's why it felt like it was a good place for this. And then too, I'd also heard, I remembered, of course, I sometimes go down the rabbit hole when I pull songs, but I went back to the video, from back in the day, and you see people doing things like recycling, like whenever that was top of my, like, now it feels like it's like rote, we just do it. But there was a time when people didn't
Yeah.
even think about that, so it made me see again perspective, like how far we've come, and then how easy it is to just like locally, all you have to do is just maybe change your perspective a little bit, or just look up and see what's right in front of you that you could potentially change. Well, I have so enjoyed having this conversation with you. Like I said, I know that lots of people all over the country are feeling a little bit, powerless, or like things have been a little bit chaotic or unpredictable. And so I think that the best thing that you can do, or one of the things that I try and do when I'm feeling out of control like that, is just focus on the change I can make. And I think that you and Lake Travis Voices for Progress are so good at engaging and making people feel like they can affect change. So I'm grateful to you for that. And I'm grateful to you for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yes. And listeners, if you are feeling overwhelmed and paralyzed by what's happening on the national political stage, remember, a good place to start fighting for the change you want to see is right in your own backyard. And if you are local to the Austin Lake Travis area, you can visit the LT Voices for Progress website at ltvoicesforprogress.org. That's the letters L and T, then voices, VoicesForProgress.org. And on the website, you can learn more about the organization, check out their events calendars for ways to get involved. And lastly, I called this out, but if you are local, please be sure to vote in the Lake Travis School Board election on April 22nd. That's really important. Again, these local changes affect us, everyone in the community. So definitely, whoever your candidates are, get informed on them, get up to speed, and please be sure that you go out and vote on the 22nd. And as always, I'm giving lots of instructions today, but as always, please be sure to follow, download, and share this show. And if you love listening, drop a review on Apple or Spotify for us. Last but not least, to stay informed on all things Super Awesome Mix and what are you listening to, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Super Awesome Mix. Thanks for listening, and please join me again next week to find your new favorite song.